So I've had a number of people over the years who have influenced me as a person, as a scientist, and some of them go way back to my early childhood when I was I believe I was in elementary school and junior high school. I first watched the television series, the PBS series Cosmos by Carl Sagan, and it inspired me. Sagan had a way to describe the world of science, in a way that was inspiring, that sort of piqued my curiosity. It was one of the things that got me excited about doing science, was my early exposure to the world of science through Carl Sagan and the PBS series Cosmos. And to this day, I continue to read what Sagan wrote about Earth science, about planetary science. It infuses what I write. It infuses how I frame the issues that I talk about, like human-caused climate change. I sometimes wonder, what would Carl Sagan say? How would he describe this? How would he convey this in a way that people can understand it? So that was one of the figures who inspired me. Another was Steve Schneider. Steve Schneider was a great climate scientist, but he was also a wonderful science communicator, like Carl Sagan. But he focused specifically on the issue of climate change early on, before it was as widespread a concern as it is now. Back in the early 1990s and the late 1980s, Carl Sagan was already talking about the threat of continued fossil fuel burning and the warming of the planet that was causing, and the impacts that was having. And this was early on in my sort of scientific training, back when I was in early graduate school, for example, finishing up my undergraduate degree and beginning graduate school, first in physics, and then I ultimately moved into the field of earth sciences and climate. And Steve Schneider was one of those figures, one of those people. I read his papers, I followed his work, and I was fortunate enough to finally get to the point where I knew Steve Schneider not just as a great scientist and sort of an inspirational figure, but a friend and a mentor. And he, in fact, helped me deal with some of the attacks that I faced when our work on climate change became prominent, and when there were efforts by climate change deniers to discredit our work. Steve Schneider had been through that. They had tried to do that to him decades ago, and I was able to draw upon his wisdom and his counsel in dealing with some of these harrowing episodes. So Steve Schneider was another one of those figures who played a really important and formative role in my development as a scientist. One more thing about Steve Schneider. He had this way of sort of framing things. He would come up with these pithy aphorisms, and there was always a deep wisdom in them. One of the things that he had to say to me and other would-be science communicators, he had 3 rules. These were Steve Schneider's 3 rules about how to be an effective science communicator. The first thing, know your audience. Know who you're speaking to, and speak to them in terms that they can appreciate. Know thyself, which is know your limitations as a communicator. Play to your strengths. Be natural. Be yourself. Be comfortable in your own skin. Be authentic. And then finally, there was know thy stuff. Know thy stuff. Know what you're talking about. Inform yourself about the topics, the subjects that you're going to speak about. And so I always took that to heart, Steve's sort of 3 rules for effective communication. And I like to think it served me and others well, as we've gone and tried to fill the very large shoes that were left behind when Steve passed away some years ago.